The religious love to claim that there's proof for the stuff they believe, but when you really get down to it, there isn't anything. Nothing verifiable anyhow. They just really want to believe. That is never going to be enough, so let's take a look at another example coming up next. This is another suggested video by Samuel Schick, and if you find something that you think you'd like me to take a look at, post a direct link to the video in the comments of any of my videos, and I'll be sure to take a look at it. This is supposedly new evidence that Jesus is God. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work out for you as well as you hope. Not that the religious actually care, because they're just going for pure fifis and faith. So, let's get to it.
What if a single ancient carving could reveal how the earliest Christians viewed Jesus?
It doesn't matter how they viewed Jesus. This is a problem that I've seen from the religious side time and time again. That's why it doesn't matter what the decades-long game of telephone said. Only what actually happened at the beginning, and we have no corroboratory evidence whatsoever for any of that. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. It matters what's justifiably and verifiably true in objective reality. So this is already off to a bad start, but let's persevere and see where it goes.
Found far from the land of his ministry, this artifact not only affirms his divinity, but also shows how deeply his message had spread.
It does absolutely nothing to affirm any divinity, because that's not something that you can do with words. You can only do that with objectively verifiable evidence. This is why my book says a thing doesn't matter. That is valid only if you can show that your book is factually correct, and they can't do that, can they? So we're already getting into, well, it sounds good to me theology, which is absolutely worthless. The title of the video says, "This new discovery shows that Jesus Christ is God." Showing what some people believed about Jesus doesn't prove anything remotely of the sort. That's the whole problem. Not that you'll ever get the religious to admit it. So, not impressed so far. What else you got?
Today we'll explore the 2nd century inscription that boldly declares Jesus as Lord, offering a glimpse into the faith and determination of early Christians.
So, the title of your video is now completely debunked. It doesn't matter what anyone believes. Faith is not a demonstrable path to truth. This is kind of what I expected, and sadly, I don't think I'm going to be surprised. This is just a bunch of mindless confirmation bias. But they thought so too, so it's got to be true. Stop making a fool of yourself. It doesn't help. This is why religion always fails, and I might as well avail myself of the opportunity to tear this whole mess apart. A lot of theistic arguments will throw out a half-assed claim and then go to, therefore God, without being able to link the two in any demonstrable way. I don't understand how these people can be so absolutely clueless. This is just religious desperation. They just really want it to be true. They are looking for excuses that they can point to so they can feel justified in their faith, but it just doesn't work. The only thing that can show that Jesus is God is to prove first that Jesus ever existed in the first place, and good luck on that. Your faith means absolutely nothing here. You need objectively verifiable evidence that anyone can examine rationally, and you've got none of that. Then you need to prove that God is real with the same level of evidence provided. That is not going to happen either. Then you need to somehow connect the two in a way that is verifiable by anyone, even those who don't accept your faith a priori. This is the stuff that they can't do, and they know it. That's why they don't want to talk to us, isn't it?
This significant find, now referred to as the Frankfurt inscription, was unearthed in the Roman frontier region.
And it still doesn't matter. It might prove that some people believed in Jesus, but that doesn't prove that their beliefs were actually true. This is where you're going to go wrong, and that's not exactly a surprise. This is what desperation looks like. They really want it to be true, and they're willing to stretch their incredulity to any extent to get there because they're just looking for comfort, not fact. You got some problems, pal. You really do.
The text dates back to the 2nd century AD, a critical period for the growth of Christianity. It was discovered in what was once part of Germania Superior, a province far removed from the faith's origins in Jerusalem.
Honestly, if this wasn't a suggested video, I might start fast-forwarding right about here. I mean, so what? Because we can look at all kinds of other non-Christian things here that mean just as little. We know through carvings and documents, things like that, some of the things that the ancient Egyptians believed, or the ancient Mesopotamians believed, or whatever. That list is very, very long. What people believe doesn't matter. I mean, sure, if you're a cultural anthropologist, maybe it does to you. Maybe a historian might care about the beliefs of the people that they're studying. But these things have nothing at all to do with objective reality. Beliefs do not make facts. This is supposed to be showing that Jesus is God, and you can't get from, well, it seems to me, to anything objectively demonstrable. And that seems to be all he's really got, doesn't it? This is where they've got problems, and I predict this isn't going to get any better, but I guess we'll just have to see, won't we?
Archaeologists were astonished by the clarity of the inscription and its location. Its presence in a region dominated by Roman military culture demonstrates that Christian beliefs had reached even the edges of the empire.
So, delusion is not restricted to the center of a culture. We're talking a couple of hundred years after the cult started. It's going to move as far as the people exposed to it have moved, and in the ancient world, that was pretty far. This still doesn't get you anywhere close to proving that a real physical objective Jesus was actually a real physical objective God. It doesn't prove that Jesus ever existed at all. It just proves that some people believed it. Big deal. It means nothing of any consequence about the real world, and that's all I care about. So, are we going to spend the next 5 minutes conflating belief with fact? Because that's going to make for a pretty boring video, won't it?
The carving reads, "In the name of the holy Titus, holy, 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 in the name of Jesus Christ, God's Son."
And I could write a book about Bobo the tree god right now. If it survived for 2,000 years, that wouldn't make Bobo real. This is the problem that the religious just can't get through their heads. They are starting with an unjustified conclusion reached for entirely emotional reasons, and they can't understand that just because they really want it to be true, that doesn't mean that it suddenly is. Granted, this is not just a religious problem, but it is a problem nonetheless. Way too many people are only after stroking their own fifis and egos. And that's pretty fucking stupid if you ask me.
The Lord of the world resists with all his might every assault and setback. God grants entry to well-being. May this remedy protect the person who surrenders to the will of the Lord Jesus Christ, God's Son. For before Jesus Christ every knee shall bow, those in heaven, on earth, and under the earth, and every tongue shall confess to Jesus Christ.
I probably should have just fast-forwarded through that, but I let it run just to show all of the interpretations that he's making, because the inscription itself isn't that complete. There's a lot of stuff in there that he's just making up. Granted, I will give him credit that on screen at least, he's sort of being honest about it. He's not pretending that it actually says everything that he's saying necessarily. But let's go and look at the actual artifact. It comes from a graveyard found at Nida near Frankfurt. There were a total of 127 burials, and in one, a man who was estimated to be between maybe 35 and 45, he had a silver amulet inside of which was a crumpled silver foil upon which the inscription was written. It was so badly decomposed that it could only be read by using X-ray imaging. That's why we can only interpret some of the words on the description. This is a 3rd century artifact, not a 2nd century, as our narrator claimed. The amulet itself was meant to magically protect the wearer from evil, and the inscription is basically a magical spell written in Latin. Okay, so what? Because like I said, this only shows what people believed about Jesus, not what was actually true about Jesus. Your beliefs don't matter. Nobody's do. So we have an interesting trinket, nothing more. It might tell us about the spread of Christianity, but not a thing about the supposed truth of Christianity. And that's really about all that matters here, right?
This brief yet profound statement reflects core Christian beliefs.
And nothing at all about factual reality, for the same reason that nothing in the Bible means a damn thing until you can prove that the Bible is actually true. It's not the claims that matter, it's the corroboration, and there is no corroboration. My book or my amulet says a thing is meaningless. This is just another video preaching to the choir because only the choir is dumb enough to fall for it. It doesn't matter what you want to be true. It matters only what actually is.
It identifies Jesus as Christ, affirming him as the Messiah foretold in Jewish prophecies.
This is a point that came up recently in the comments on some of my videos. This is really where the religious go so wrong. They are convinced that absolutely anything their religions teach, no matter how absurd it happens to be, well, it's all got to be real, right? They can't have a healthy amount of skepticism at all. Well, that just sounds like bullshit. Probably because it is. They can't just admit that the things that they believe might not be true because they're terrified of the imaginary man in their heads. This is why you can't have a decent conversation with the religious. And I'm honestly convinced this is true, at least for most of them, because they can't come up to our level, and we're certainly not going to go down to theirs. They desperately want this stuff to be true, but they can't actually examine it to see if it really is. That's where I feel really lucky that I could do that back in the day. I cared what was actually true, and I wasn't going to allow my blind faith to get in the way of the search for actual reality. If it's true, it has nothing at all to fear from honest inquiry. That's why the religious are so terrified to go out and verify the stuff for themselves. Because I think on some level, they know it's not true, or at least they suspect that it might not be. That's got to be a terrible way to go through life, right? Being afraid that the stuff you're clinging to for emotional reasons, it isn't actually so. Or you're a deluded lunatic. I mean, take your pick. Let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on this because I'm honestly interested to see what people have to say.
The phrase Lord of the world highlights his divine sovereignty.
I can already tell that this entire video is just going to be empty claims and wishful thinking, can't you? Granted, that's pretty much every video that we ever look at around here, but this one is particularly noteworthy in just how blatant it is. I mean, we've watched plenty where they say, there's evidence for God, and then they do absolutely nothing but make empty claims and pretend that just because they believe it, it's gotta be true. But this one is on a new level of stupidity. Because the discovery, and it is a real discovery, but it has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the claims being made. This is being so blinded by your faith that even your seeing eye dog has a seeing eye dog. This is really, really dumb.
Echoing scriptural depictions of God's authority. Additionally, the text underscores Jesus' role in granting well-being and salvation, aligning with the New Testament's proclamation that, at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow.
And you've gotten nowhere remotely close to that. See, here's the thing that I always struggle to make clear, or at least I think I do. When I'm watching my own videos months after they're in the can, I always think, yeah, I could have said that more clearly, couldn't I? And maybe that's true, maybe that's not. I don't know. That's not really up to me to say. You can let me know down in the comments, because invariably some theist will come along and completely miss the point that I was trying to make, and maybe that's their problem rather than mine. Because you have to actually have a rational path to truth. You can't just believe because you really want to believe. Not if you hope to remain a critical thinker, and I think for most theists, that's not even on their radar. They don't care, but they get upset when somebody points out that they don't care. Because every time I ask a theist how they know the things they profess to know, I generally get the same response: anger or indignation. They're upset that I don't blindly believe the things that they do. They're mad that I dared ask the question. How dumb is that? Because for me at least, that's a very normal question to ask. How do you know that? Where did you get that information? How do you justify it, not only to yourself, but I think more importantly, to other people? But for the religious, they can't even consider these questions because they've been taught, explicitly or implicitly, that they're not even allowed to have any questions at all. They just have to believe blindly. They think that they're going to get punished for having doubts. And I'm sorry, but doubts are normal. Questions are expected. If you're not asking questions, then you're not doing intelligence right. That's what people do. It's what rational people do, at least. And that's why the religious are rarely rational, at least when talking about their silly beliefs. This isn't a problem for us. It's a problem for them. And that's why they fail constantly. That's kind of sad, right?
In heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father.
Now, this might just be me, and you can tell me down in the comments if you agree or not, but this really sounds like a lot of excuses. Because religion is a hyper-authoritarian control mechanism designed to keep everything top down. You listen to what your supposed betters tell you is true, because if you doubt the magical man in the sky that these people supposedly represent, he's going to come down and smite your stupid ass, and you don't want that to happen, do you? This isn't about promoting God. This is about promoting the people who pretend to represent God. The people who are using God as a whip to force you to do what they want you to do. Now, to be fair, not all apologists know that's what they're doing. Some of them are every bit as much the victim as the people they're lying to are. That's the real sad part in all of this, that it victimizes at least some of the victimizers as well. It reminds me of the video that we did where Mike Lacona, when he had doubts, he went to Gary Habermas, who outright lied to him and fed him a line of bullshit so that he'd just keep believing. Then, with his delusion reinforced, he went and did the exact same thing to others. Now, I'm not saying that Mike isn't a con man too. I mean, not on the same scale as somebody like Gary Habermas or Frank Turek or William Lane Craig. I mean, maybe he is, maybe he's not. But he's had this stuff done to him like he's now doing to others. He's just passing on the abuse. Whether he realizes that's what he's doing or not, I've got no idea, but this is the insidious nature of religion. It's terrible for everybody.
Such wording was revolutionary. Declaring Jesus as Lord in a Roman context was not just theological, but political. It challenged the emperor's claim to divinity and supremacy, making this statement an act of defiance as much as faith.
Well, he's got one thing right. Because at the time that the amulet was found, Christianity was still against the law in the Roman Empire. So he wasn't completely wrong. Mostly, yes, but not completely. Yet nowhere, at least so far, has he shown that this discovery proves that Jesus was actually God. It's the standard argument from ignorance problem that the religious have. I don't get it, therefore God. God is the foregone conclusion that they have in their heads, and everything, no matter how irrational, proves that they were right all along because they desperately want to be right. But that doesn't mean anything, does it? They are incapable of separating what they wish was true from what is demonstrably true. And because they can't ask any of the questions that they really need to be asking, they lost track of where they are in the conversation. Well, of course we're right. You haven't proven that. I don't have to prove it because I'm right. This is the childish nonsense that we continually have to put up with from the religious. Just because you really believe it, that doesn't mean it's not childish nonsense. It just makes you look really dumb.
The significance of the inscription lies in its location, modern-day Germany, in the Roman frontier province of Germania Superior.
That's not actually modern-day Germany. It's where modern-day Germany would one day be, but that doesn't mean anything, does it? Now, if you wanted significance, find something that said the same thing, dating to the late 1st or early 2nd century, found in, I don't know, what would one day be Ohio or Australia or Hawaii. Any of those would be fine. That would be interesting, and we'd have a really hard time explaining that, wouldn't we? Not that they care or anything, because they're desperate to find anything that they can twist into seeming support for their blind faith. That's why they keep mistaking what people believed about God for what is actually true about God. And that's why we have a lot of questions, and we should. Not that they'll have any intelligent answers, because of course they won't.
Before this discovery, historians generally believed that Christianity had not spread so far north during the 2nd century.
Now, that might be an interesting point, but again, this is about Christianity, not Jesus. We can refine what we think about the religion, but that doesn't prove that the religion was actually true. I just made this point, sort of, over on Reddit when I pointed out that our accepting of the Trojan War happened because we'd found external evidence to back it up. But that didn't mean that we should accept the stories of gods and goddesses in the Homeric epics, should we? We have a real event, and we have a lot of mythic elements tacked onto it. But that doesn't make those elements real. Learn to deal.
It was assumed that the faith primarily existed in urban centers closer to the Mediterranean, where Roman infrastructure and trade routes facilitated its spread.
Then your assumptions are wrong. Alter them to match the existing data and then just move on. We don't know anything about that guy in what would eventually become Germany, other than that he presumably believed a thing. And actually, we don't even know that. Maybe he just picked up that amulet somewhere closer to Rome and just carried it with him as a keepsake. We don't know. There are a lot of assumptions being made here that are not necessarily justifiable. It's going to remain a mystery unless we can find some more corroboratory evidence. And of course, that doesn't stop the religious from just running around with the goalpost, does it? But we all know they're a bunch of idiots.
This artifact challenges that narrative. Its presence in Germania Superior reveals that Christian communities were active in regions far removed from Christianity's origins.
Not necessarily. There are lots of possibilities. People like to leap to conclusions that are not rationally justifiable just because they match up with their inherent biases. In the end, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't establish that Jesus was God, only that this guy might have believed it. Belief doesn't make truth. This is why you have to follow the claims and seek out corroboratory evidence that support the claims, not just leap to unsupported and unjustified conclusions because you really like the idea. Liking the idea doesn't mean anything, but that's really all the religious have most of the time. Anyhow, this seems like a decent place to stop for the day. I figured this would be another one and done, but sometimes it doesn't turn out the way you like, so we'll just catch up next week and finish it off. What do you think so far? This guy is really jumping to a lot of conclusions that he just can't support because he really wants it to be true. It's fine if this artifact makes us rethink what we thought we knew about the spread of Christianity. It doesn't even begin to address the actual godhood of Jesus, though, and that's where he's going completely wrong. Maybe we'll get more into that the next time. I've got no idea. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Thanks once again to Samuel Schick for finding the video, and if you have something that you want me to take a look at, post a direct link to YouTube or TikTok or wherever really, and I'll add it to the list. I mean, no promises I'm actually going to do every video, although I do try. So until next time, think about things rationally, because what you feel, what you wish and dream, none of that matters to actual truth, and it's the actual truth that matters. So everybody, take care, and I'll see you all next time.